Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod with Bahij, khouzami. He's founder at Autism Intervention Specialist in Dubai, professional advisory board member at IBAO. He's in Dubai. It's midnight. I'm in Oaxaca. It's 2 p.m. And we're going to make a nice pod, talk about autism, talk about speech therapy and everything in between. This pod is brought to you by podpire.com. If you want to start your own podcast and scale it, go to podpire.com. Bahij, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Thank you so much for having me, Charles. It's a pleasure. As you mentioned, my name is Bahij khouzami. I'm a board certified behavior analyst. I'm an international behavior analyst as well. And I'm a professional advisory board member for IBAO for United Arab Emirates and for Azerbaijan. I'm based in Dubai. I used to be in Massachusetts, where I got my master's in applied behavior analysis. I worked there for a couple of years. My cousin owned a company for autism back then. Then I decided to move to Dubai and start my own clinic, which is Autism Intervention Specialists. We are providing ABA services for individuals with autism in home settings, in schools, in nurseries, community, and center-based.
So how did you get into this? Why was autism interesting to you in the first place?
I would say it started as a family business. As I mentioned, my cousin was the first behavior analyst in the family. Then he brought on my younger brother, and then I joined later on. So we are three behavior analysts within the family. It was something very interesting to me as I like to help people, and I found my niche in this.
What's autism? Let's start with that.
Perfect. So autism is a term that describes a group of neurodevelopmental conditions that affect a person, how they communicate, their language, their social skills, um, the way that they behave, the way that they think about the world, they perceive the world. They might have some restricted or repetitive behaviors. They might have other comorbid disabilities or disorders as well, like ADHD, depression, anxiety, OCD specifically, because we see a lot of comorbidity between OCD and autism because of the rigidity in thinking and in doing some certain things in particular way. And it's a lifelong condition. There is no cure, as some might advertise on the internet that they did find a cure. You can take some natural remedy or some herb or something. You might drink some specific kind of camel milk, which is very expensive, and that would cure autism. You might start a very rigid or strict diet that can, clear out all the poison in your body, so-called. But, all these methods, they have never been proven. They are not evidence-based. They didn't work. And so the person is left out with the condition, and there's just no cure for that.
Yeah, I think the cure thing, not sure in the Middle East if there's like camel milk and stuff, but yeah, most of the time people are pretty aware here that yeah, there's no cure to that. It's like it's just the cure for cancer. And I mean, how do you? I mean, okay, autism. Well, autism is yeah different from how do you call it? In French, it's trisomie. Is like
Schizophrenia.
no, not schizophrenia.
What is it?
Yeah, trisomie 21. So it's like lacking the 21st chromosome.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Down syndrome.
Down syndrome. There you go. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So, is Down syndrome has a form of autism as well, right? Like, what's the difference between that and autism? I'm not sure why I associate both.
Yes. So Down syndrome is not similar to autism. However, there are some statistics that show that if you have Down syndrome, you might have autism as well. But if you have autism, that doesn't mean that you might have Down syndrome. So Down syndrome is purely genetics, and it can be found out within the wound of the mother. So there are tests that they can do. They can tell before the baby is born if the kid, the infant, is gonna have Down syndrome or not. They can't do that with autism yet. With autism, the baby has to be born first. They have to, there is no test that can tell you if there's autism or not. It's all by observation, by evaluation, and by assessments. So the difference between them is one is purely genetics, which is the Down syndrome. It's shown on the face. You can tell if that the person, there's physical difference. Autism is not. Autism is often called a hidden disability because it doesn't show physically on the person that they have autism or they don't have autism. You might be talking to a person who's completely on the spectrum, but you can't even tell. And that that could take us to another question if you like.
Well, being on the spectrum is like having a direction to your brain that is uncommon to most humans. So I guess it's deficiencies in some areas, but could lead to massive gains into some other areas, right?
That's correct. However, the percentage of those individuals are not as prevalent as the general public or the population they might think. So I got here a study that was done in 2023, and they mentioned that almost 60% of autistic people, they may have an average or above average IQ. So this is higher than they previously estimated, where the estimation was around 31 to 38%. And they contributed that improvement in the statistics in 2023 compared to, let's say, the 2000s, is because of the early intervention, because of the education, because of the support that these children or these autistic children they were receiving when they were diagnosed with autism. So that improved their IQ or their cognitive abilities. However, that population of, like Elon Musk, for example, like he's super smart. He did say he's on the autism spectrum. Albert Einstein also was on the spectrum. That kind of population is maybe 1% of the autistic people. So even though they do have some extraordinary skills, like there was a kid from New York. They took him in the helicopter, and then with one look, he was able to draw the whole New York City. That is not common. Those are exceptional cases. That's why I receive in my clinic many families who might say to me, especially the mother, like, I want to know what is my special talent for my kid. And I was like, I can't tell you that. There is no way for me to tell you that. He has to show you. And he might not have one, like, unfortunately. He might not have one. I'm sorry. Not all of them they do. Not all of them are geniuses in math, in engineering, in physics, like Elon Musk, for example, like Einstein. Uh, they're not also talented in music and painting. A lot of them they like to draw, they like to paint. Some of them they are really good at it, but the majority, unfortunately, are not.
Right. Sometimes I do consider myself on the spectrum too, because I'm so focused in some areas and I disregard completely others, like social conventions and how to socialize with people. I attract similar clients that are odd people, or neurodivergent could be another term, but I don't feel it fully reflects the classic textbook definition of autism. Even Elon, and Einstein, mean, I feel there's no like clear definition as well to autism. I mean, Elon's clearly lacking in some areas, and he's in his own bubble. He's focused on things. Einstein was a great conversationalist, apparently, but yeah, quite the colorful person as well to some others. And now if autism means to have skills in maths or physics, not sure what you think of that either. Like, is there like a specific brain pattern? Like if we look at the brain, would there be like more activations in some areas? Because I talked with the guy the other day, and yeah, he's on the spectrum. Definitely, I could see by talking to him, like social interactions were probably not his thing. And he sent me some images of the brain, of his brain actually, and how activated it was um, compared to some normal brains. So can we agree to like a definition of a physical, visual way to describe autism, do you feel?
Not yet. I've seen some studies that it's still early on. It's early in stages of knowing physically from a brain scan that the person has autism or not. It's not yet widely proven, but they are working on something like that. Recently, I read a research about that, but they said it's inconclusive yet. We can't tell for 100% if that's the case. Now, going back to the definition of autism, Einstein and Elon Musk, for example, and the person you were interviewing, or potentially yourself as well, they used to be characterized as what it used to be called Asperger syndrome. And this Asperger syndrome now is classified under the autism spectrum disorder. Some people now they're calling it autism. I keep going back to the name of my clinic. It's for autism spectrum condition instead of using autism spectrum disorder. Some researchers, they are using that term. Other researchers are using the condition term, newly. That's something new that they are using. So they are used to be called Asperger's. They were not called autistic or people with autism. However, the DSM-5 changed, and it included the Asperger syndrome with other conditions such as PDD-NOS, which is pervasive developmental disorder, non-otherwise specified. That means the clinician was not able to pinpoint exactly what are the criteria to give the diagnosis for autism. So, but they saw something, so they gave the PDD-NOS diagnosis. All that now is under the ASD, which is the autism spectrum disorder. The most characteristic for the Asperger syndrome is the social skills. There is no speech delay. There is no language deficits. There is everything. It functions clearly, above average IQ, intelligence above average, even more than average with these kind of individuals. However, they lack the social skills. This is the only thing that discriminates the people with that level with other levels with autism. So if, let's say, now they are classified under level 1. So Elon Musk, for example, he would be classified as level 1. As I mentioned before, he was called Asperger syndrome. So now with the level 1, it's only about social skills. So they don't have problem with communication. They have no problem with language or understanding others. It's just about they feel odd with social interactions. They might not understand some social cues, some sarcasm, for example. Like I was talking the other day with a client, and I told him, I'm just kidding. I was just pulling your leg. And he was like, why do you want to pull my leg? So that's an expression like I'm teasing you. But because he couldn't understand that sarcasm, he took it as literally the word that I said, which is I am pulling your leg.
It's probably the first time you heard that expression too.
That's right. But if you say that to, depending on the culture and depending on the country, but if you say that to most people, they would assume that either a metaphor, or they might tell you, well, I don't know what that means, but they will not think that you're actually gonna pull their leg, because there is no context in the conversation that you're having with someone for them to pull your leg. It doesn't make sense to you.
Right.
But to them, they take it very literal.
Yeah. I think people love to tag themselves with some things like, oh yeah, I'm autistic. That's me, that's my identity. Everything that has to do with identity, it's like highly rewarding, right? So, because Elon, I mean, has always been a little genius, but he wasn't necessarily a social, he used to read like all these stories about sci-fi, which involves humans. Um, so he's not that much of an alien. Now he got bullied. Me, I never had social problems, was a popular kid in primary school, high school, a bit less. I got to play World of Warcraft, and then I became somewhat secluded. That's where I became like introvert, extrovert, hybrid. Now, I think autism, it's also because it has to do with some form of intelligence, right? And if I talk to Elon nowadays, his social intelligence is not too bad. I mean, I think he learned to interact with people. Same to me, if I wouldn't be on podcasts with everyone, if I'd be hyper focused on science and physics, like I would be very odd to talk to. We wouldn't communicate in the same language. And autistic people, the way we see it with Einstein and Elon, well, Elon highly successful in business, right? So highly intelligent when it comes to making money, and Einstein highly successful when it comes to understanding the laws of physics, or literally coming up with them. So I feel that autism is sort of a tag also. It's like a pride tag nowadays to describe yourself as this odd individual that have something, but you're telling me that the reality is like it's a small incidence here. But can someone, okay, let's start with this. Can someone like me that had social skill become somewhat autistic on purpose from modifying my brain so much? And can someone with autism become social and display less autism?
No to your first one and yes to your second one. So no, you can't make yourself have autism. You can't catch autism. It's not a disease. It's not an illness. It's a condition. So, and it's a lifelong condition, as we started describing about autism. Now, can you get better? If you have autism and you have some social skill deficits, can you get better with social skills? Absolutely. And I believe that's what Elon did. Uh, his family, or maybe his mother, because he gives a lot of credit to his mother. She really worked on his probably she worked on that part for his social skills as well. But still, if you are a trained observer and you know what you're looking for and you listen to Elon Musk, you can immediately know there's something. Um,
Yeah, the way he
right?
speaks and so forth.
Yeah. You know, the movements, the eye contact, and the eye contact is not as the general public. Like it's not like, oh, I saw him do eye contact. No, if you are a trained observer, you know when he's gonna be looking, how long he's gonna be looking, what question he started looking towards the speaker, what questions he's looking down. So you start catching on these little details that the
Right.
general public they don't pick up on because they're not
Mhm.
trained to do that.
Yeah, I can see that. I see what you're saying here. Sometimes I don't pick up social cues, like sometimes I don't distinguish between like a joke or if someone, it seems like I'm always serious, right? I'm super rational, and I'd love to bring that jokey aspect of mine again. And yeah, because sarcasm most of the time it's just an obstacle, like especially in business, it's like, why are you being sarcastic? Let's just get down to business and like tell the facts, don't blur the communications. Anyway,
Exactly.
so do you work with like the business type in terms of autistic people, like Elon type that can't pick up really social cues, and is that part of your clientele?
It used to be when I was back in the States, but when I moved to Dubai, the majority of the clients or the families that they started coming to us are early interventionists. So they are either preschoolers. We have sometimes infants, 6 months. We have 1 year and a half. We have and up to 6 to 7 years. We had the oldest one we had was around 14, and another one around 21. It was a girl. But the majority of our clients, they are um, preschoolers or kindergartens as well.
If I have an autistic child, how should I deal with that? Is it like more patience and adapt to them? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So there's a lot behind that. It's just as a parent, if you have a child with autism, I suggest that you educate yourself as a parent on, first of all, what is autism? That's one. Second, learn the behavior, the science of human behavior, which is the applied behavior analysis. And applied behavior analysis is considered the golden standard for the treatment of autism. So if you want to get better, if you want to help your child, learn about behavior analysis. It's the only way out for your child, for them to be successful, to be as fully independent as possible, and to live their life at the full potential. That full potential might not look like what you want as a parent, but it might look as the full potential of that person. So when you know that you provided all the support that you can to your child, then you have no regret in life later on. Now, what can you do? Patience, definitely. But patience, you need to know when to give the patience, how to give the patience. If you are having patience for the wrong things, then you are teaching him the wrong things. If you don't have patience for the right things, then you are not teaching him the right things because you don't have patience for that. So parent training is one of our most critical aspect in our training sessions. Every week we have parent training sessions specifically for parents. So my job as a supervisor and a clinical director, I work mostly with parents, not with children. My therapists, they work with children one-on-one. I work mostly with parents because they need to know how to deal with their children. Otherwise, we're going to be in their life forever, which is not logical and practical, and it costs a lot of money for them. And also, we're not in the life of the child all his life. They are. So they need to learn how to deal with that through supervision, through taking courses, through trainings, through following the behavior plan that the BCBA, that the behavior analyst put for them, and also attending sessions so they can see how the therapist is working with their children. I just had a father yesterday that he said to me, I don't know how to deal with my son. He throws everything and he broke the TV 2 times. And I said, okay, well, when he does that, what do you do? He said, I give him whatever he wants, so he stops. I said, well, there you go. That's your mistake. Like this is where you're wrong now, and that's what you need to learn how to change. So I worked with him for an hour for the first time as soon as he walked in the door, and I said to him, look, I'll show you. And then we started. And the kids started throwing the balls uh, from the ball pit into the whole clinic. And then I guided him and I told him how he should be doing so that his kid will listen to him whenever he says, okay, it's time to clean up. Let's go. And as soon as he did that, a couple of repetitions, as soon as he said, okay, go pick up the balls now, we're going to leave, the kids started listening to him. And the father was shocked. He was like, I was like, listen, this is not magic. This is science. It's science. If you learn the science of human behavior and you know how to deal with it, then you will not have these difficulties and you will control the behavior of your child. But first, you need to control and change your own behavior so that you can change the behavior of others.
Right. First thought I had here is like, the father must have autism himself for not being able to understand human nature and human psychology. That's basic stuff, you know, like when someone is not doing something you like, you don't give him a reward. Sometimes you give rewards when they do some good things. Sometimes punishment is good. In my own philosophy, in my book, I might understand some people might have it different now. Last question for you. Like my understanding of autism, you know, there's biochemistry in this brain, so there might be lacking some dopamine, some serotonin in some areas. For genetic reasons, could be able to recreate those with external factors. There's also like a wiring of the brain and neuron pathways for genetic or biochemical reasons. These might not be developed. Um, am I right in thinking this, you know, like, can you put someone, yeah, you answered that earlier, but is autism, do people have control over it? Can they actually rewire themselves to a normal or even optimal state?
The short answer is yes, but they cannot do it by themselves. They can do it by the use of techniques that are based on science, which is the behavioral analysis, and specifically the applied behavior analysis. And if you have that from early age, as early as 6 months to 1 year, and you have access to that from the beginning, you can rewire the brain, the neurons of the brain, and it's called the neuroplasticity. Because the first 2 years of life, this is where the brain starts exploding and evolves and grows very quickly. So if you have that and you provide the appropriate intervention within that period of time, that's why you see a lot of advertisement and social media posts about early intervention and the importance of early intervention, is because of that critical period of 2 to 3 years where those neurons and the neuroplasticity is the most changeable and malleable as possible. Now, the older the person gets, the difficult it becomes to change certain behaviors. Imagine it as a tree. Would it be easy for you to take a tree out from the ground when it's 10, 15 years old and the roots has been grounding in the ground for 10 years, or when it's maybe 1 year or 2 years? Which one you're going to have easier time to pull it out from the ground? Of course, you're going to have the less time you intervene, the better the result you will have. So that neuroplasticity is very important to work on at the beginning, and that's what we are doing. I had many kids who before they went to a diagnosis, they started early intervention, and we were able to change the level of diagnosis for them based on the early intervention that they received before they went. And the doctor did tell to the mother, if you came without intervention from the beginning, he would have received the highest level of support, which is level 3. But she gave him the mild to moderate diagnoses, and that also can improve if they continue with support and early intervention.
Well, Bahij, thank you for that. Where can people find out more about you?
Sure. So they can go ahead on our Instagram, autism_intervention_specialist, also on our website, www.aisdubai.com, and on TikTok as well. I can also send you all these descriptions so you can maybe put them in your show notes. They can send us an email to info@aisdubai.com. We are on most of the platform on social media. The main one is the website and Instagram and TikTok.